What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. All of us knew, or at least had an idea about the inferiority in all aspects of the Russian military, in contrast to what the Russian propaganda was showing us. In pure numbers and potential, yes, this could have been the second strongest military in the world, but in reality, the internal problems made it not even the second strongest military in Ukraine, but probably not even in Russia itself. The severely miscalculated invasion of Ukraine uncovered even deeper issues involving recruitment tactics, internal corruption, neglect of soldier welfare, and rising public dissatisfaction. Even Z-Propagandists themselves stopped believing any single word coming out of the mouths of the Ministry of Defense, solely relying on real-life stories of soldiers from the front lines. And let me tell you what, some of these stories reveal such atrocities that it makes you think that even Russian soldiers probably don't deserve such attitude. So no wonder even Z Telegram channels turned against Putin at this point, leaving only Vladimir Solovyov as Putin's one and only propagandist. And just as easy as Z-Propaganda created the image of Putin and justified his war, they can also become the main reason of his regime's downfall. The Russian army is facing a critical shortage of personnel due to substantial casualties sustained during the war in Ukraine. In an attempt to replenish its ranks, military recruiters have resorted to increasingly aggressive and controversial methods. For example, recently, new recruitment campaigns have emerged that implicitly challenge the masculinity of potential draftees, using provocative language to question their courage and dedication. One such campaign directly implies that those who do not enlist, they lack traditional masculine qualities, thereby pressuring young men to prove themselves by joining the army. So, according to the state propaganda, it is either you join the Russian military, go to Ukraine, and die inglorious death somewhere in a trench knee-deep in mud water from a Ukrainian drone, or you belong to an LGBTQ community. You like men, and your life in Russia should be treated as a cowardly outcast. The message they sent young Russian men could not be more clear. However, a very interesting paradox appears. Those who come up with such recruitment campaigns, the patriots who support the invasion but avoid mobilization at all costs, and Russian propagandists such as once again Vladimir Solovyov, they are still in Russia, right? So, to which one of these two categories, these new Russian men, these people belong then? Well, indeed, that's a very interesting observation. These recruitment efforts penetrated, pun intended, most public spaces, with advertisements, for example, being displayed in the Moscow subway system. Despite the high visibility, the effectiveness of such campaigns remains pretty questionable. Even the entire idea of advertising something of a questionable desire in a public place is already flawed from the very beginning. The assumption that crowded public venues serve as ideal platforms for recruitment overlooks the complexities of promoting military service, especially when the underlying message is connected with themes of mortality and national duty. In the end, we might receive the outcome completely different from intended. People see such billboards and posters, hear passers-by complaining about them, and they start questioning themselves whether this is a good idea after all. In order for military recruitment campaigns to be highly effective, they need to target extremely precise groups of people. The aggressive nature of these tactics sparked criticism and raised ethical concerns. By leveraging societal expectations and personal insecurities, the campaigns risk alienating potential recruits rather than inspiring them. And the focus on questioning one's masculinity diverts attention from the genuine motivations and values that should underpin military service, such as patriotism, honor, and the defense of one's country. In Russia, right now, it is literally not about "we need you to join the military to protect the motherland," but rather it is, if you don't find in Ukraine, you're gay. The last time I heard such reasoning I was maybe in the 2nd or 3rd grade. Besides recruitment struggles, the Russian military is riddled with internal conflicts and widespread corruption that undermines the effectiveness and morale. The most recent case illustrating these issues involves Dmitry Lysakovsky, known by his call sign Goodwin. A former lawyer and financier educated in Switzerland, Goodwin became a big supporter of the Russian Spring in 2014, when all the Crimean Donbass events just started to happen. He redirected his expertise towards helping the separation of so-called Luhansk People's Republic, and he developed a regional fleet of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, before such technology even became widespread and common as we see it right now. Highly regarded by Z-Propagandists for his innovative contributions and leadership, Goodwin's death during one of low chance of survival mid-assaults became a focal point of controversy. Reports suggest that his demise was not merely a casualty of war, but the result of deliberate actions by his commanding officer, Colonel Puzik, which by the way is translated as fat belly in a cute way, Puzik. This happened allegedly to silence Goodwin's opposition to illegal activities within the unit, including drug trafficking by Puzik himself. The incident has been extensively covered by Western media and even pro-military bloggers, who view Goodwin's death as a significant loss to the army's capabilities and a vivid example of corruption's deadly consequences. These allegations have prompted calls for official investigations, highlighting systemic issues within the military hierarchy. The involvement of high-ranking officers in criminal activities, such as substances distribution, points to a breakdown of discipline and ethical standards. The use of dangerous missions, mid-assaults, as a means to eliminate whistleblowers or those who challenge corrupt practices emphasizes the rotten environment in which soldiers operate, where threats may come from both enemy forces and within their own ranks. The challenges facing the Russian military extend deeply into the treatment of its own soldiers, revealing troubling patterns of neglect and exploitation. Medical care on the front lines is severely lacking, with a huge shortage of qualified medical personnel. In some combat zones, soldiers have no access to medical professionals at all, leading to preventable deaths and life-threatening injuries. Countless stories emerged of wounded soldiers being redeployed into combat before they have fully recovered, sometimes while still requiring medical devices such as casts and crutches. This practice not only endangers the lives of these individuals, but also raises serious ethical and legal questions about the duty of care owed to military personnel. When the time comes and the ones responsible for such decisions are prosecuted by international courts of justice and military tribunals, I don't think that those surviving soldiers will be defending their commanding officers. No, I think they will be the most passionate witnesses. The inadequate medical support has resulted in disproportionate wounded-to-killed ratio among the Russian forces. Sources indicate that for every 2 soldiers wounded, 1 is killed. A very big difference to the higher survival rates reported by other militaries engaged in similar conflicts. For example, in Ukraine, the ratio is 4-1. 2 times more soldiers survive and recover. This difference is further highlighted by reports of soldiers taking desperate measures on the battlefield, such as nullifying themselves, the term used frequently by the Z-Propaganda. So whenever they receive even minor injuries, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about and you've seen these videos. This is most likely due to a lack of hope for rescue or proper medical treatment. They simply don't want to struggle, receive minimal care, and then be sent back to the front lines with even lower chances of survival. To make things even worse for the Russian soldiers, there are reports of them being blackmailed by their own officers, which, if you think about it, is probably the least evil thing they can do. So most likely, it happens way often than reported. There are allegations that commanding officers are demanding substantial payments from their subordinates, something up to 70,000 rubles or like $740 per month, in exchange for not being assigned to highly dangerous assault missions. Such corruption erodes trust within the ranks and violates the fundamental principles of military leadership and responsibility. And eventually, what stops these officers from taking their entire salaries? Because after all, what's worth more, 200,000 rubles or your life. If money is the last and only motivation for most Russian soldiers to continue fighting, and if you take this away from them, how long until there is a big uprising within the Russian military ranks? 2.5 years passed since the beginning of the invasion, so obviously there are people who started seeing war as business. The more power you have, the more money you can make. Starting from a regular lieutenant, making hundreds of thousands of rubles from soldiers who don't want to be assigned to meet assaults, all the way up to generals who steal billions from government contracts. All of them want to make as much money as possible before the war is over, or before they are discovered and, in the best case scenario, sent to jail. The combination of aggressive recruitment tactics, internal corruption, and the mistreatment of soldiers has led to increasing public dissatisfaction in Russia. Pro-military bloggers, commentators, and Z-Propagandists, excluding obviously state media propagandists such as Slavyev, they're the ones who typically support the government's actions, and even they have begun to voice serious concerns. They are the ones who have played a crucial role in exposing misconduct within the military, bringing attention to issues that might otherwise remain hidden. The tide is slowly but surely turning. Family members of soldiers have also become more vocal, organizing protests and demanding accountability from military authorities. Recent demonstrations in Moscow by the wives and mothers of mobilized soldiers highlight the deep personal toll of the conflict. These women seek answers about the conditions their loved ones face and advocate for their safe return. And once again, it was the Telegram channels who gave most publicity to such events within Russia. The response from authorities have been mixed, with some officials promising meetings and dialogue, while others have resorted to dispersing protests and detaining participants. Legislative initiatives aimed at addressing manpower shortages have also come under scrutiny. Proposals to drop criminal charges against individuals who agreed to enlist have been criticized by some lawmakers. They argue that such measures risk compromising the integrity and professionalism of the armed forces by introducing individuals who may not be committed to military values or who might have other motives for enlisting. After all, it was Z-propaganda that made Putin who he is right now and justified the war for him. He only had to start it, and they did the rest. Some really believed in the idea, some just wanted a little bit of publicity and recognition from the government, but every single one of them truly hoped that if they are on Putin's side, he will never let them down. And now, they're the ones facing the true face of Putin, who doesn't care about regular people, no matter which political stance they have. Unless it's a direct threat to his rule, he would not even care knowing a single thing about them, even if they worship him as a literal god. The Russian opposition was first to see the real Putin. Then it was the regular people who used to be relatively neutral to politics, and now the supposed supporters of Putin finally started to open their eyes. And just as quickly as they brought Putin to power, they can quickly destroy him. Will his closest allies become his end? Because it always comes from those you expect the least. Well, there you have it, guys. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed today's episode, and if you want to see more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. And today on Patreon we're gonna be talking about pretty funny, ridiculous Russian/Ukrainian propaganda. So if you want to see it, link to my Patreon is down below. Thanks so much for watching, have a good weekend, see you on Tuesday.
To sway, we do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.